What's up, guys? Welcome to yet another S2000 video. S2000 versus BRZ this time. Similar to the video I did last time with the stock CR versus my BRZ versus an ND2 Miata. But this time we're going to dive a little bit deeper. If you recall in that video, I mentioned that the BRZ, while a very fun car, it does have a tendency to understeer. Whereas the S2000 with its double wishbone front suspension is just a lot more of a neutral and playful car on corner entry. So we have Julius here. This is his 06 AP2 S2000, and this is the perfect car for this comparison against Sego's BRZ here, because these cars have similar mods, basic mods that improve the overall driving dynamics of the car at 7/10ths and beyond. So what have you done to this car?
Only what's necessary. Wheels, tires, suspension, that's about it. Honestly, with an S2000, you don't really need too much.
Yep.
You want to just do more seat time than anything else.
Seat time is the most important thing.
Just enjoy it. But honestly, the stock suspension was perfect.
Well, what suspension do you have now?
So now the suspension is Feal 441 Plus. So it's the 14K, 12K Swift springs, and then just the standard Feal dampers, not the RSG, because that's what people always usually ask.
Okay.
The RSG is probably the way to go, but these are just the standard Feal dampers.
And how much do these run, usually brand new?
We'll just go with the RSG, because if you're going to go brand new, the RSG is the one to go. It's 1,800 now. But at one time, those things were like 1,400.
14K, 12K,
yeah.
Spring rates, which is actually the exact same spring rates I had on my Olins, on my old S2000. My old bucket seat.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it served me well.
A 320mm Momo wheel, and you said you have
Ballade 330mm front rotor. And then for the rear, it's that Riley Racing. It's a RX-8 caliper Ford Mustang rear rotor. Basically, it's just so you can get a vented rear rotor.
And some Raybestos pads, right?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Nice and squeaky.
All right, let's see how the S2K does with a few mods. Let's open it up here.
I've never been to this road.
It's a really good road. Wow, nice suspension. It's very compliant.
That's what I was looking for.
Very good suspension test. That's one of the reasons I chose this road. Is it's a bit higher speed than some of the roads I usually film on, but there's a lot of like little camber changes and subtle bumps here and there. Like in this corner here, for example, I drove an NB Miata with Feals, and I was like, wow, these are actually really good for you know, a somewhat budget-oriented coilover that's not like a big name brand.
Yeah, for the S2000, they're always trying to be comparable to Olins.
Right.
You know? Right.
Yeah, I gotta say, on this road with these spring rates, 14K, 12K, it feels not a whole lot different than my Olins, honestly.
I know the tires on these Ventus V12, the sidewalls are really soft.
Yeah, the tires on this are not doing the car a whole lot of justice, if I'm honest, especially compared to what Sego's got. But this comparison is really focused more on how the car feels on a canyon road. So we're not on a racetrack. We're not gonna get a ton of heat into the tires where they're gonna start falling off, you know. What I really want to know is, how does it turn and feel once the BRZ has a similar amount of camber to a modified S2000, so, you know, 2 degrees plus.
Oh yeah, so even the camber on here is nothing crazy. I don't have any camber mold, any camber kit. It's whatever the stock they could get, max stock, so it's probably negative 2.6.
See, that's perfect. See, that's the perfect amount of camber for a street and track driven S2000. I really just want to see how the suspension feels.
Turkey.
And yeah, we got a couple of crossers here. Okay. Cool. reason I actually wanted an S2000 in this video, because I was originally planning to just film the BRZ by itself.
Yeah.
And talk about how it compared to an S2000. But then I thought about it, I was like, well, yes, I've reviewed tons of S2000s, but what's one more time, right? Like, I just want to get back in the car, do a few minutes behind the wheel with a good example that has some quality mods on it, and then just use that as the baseline for when I start judging the BRZ.
It's actually a great time, because a lot of people are on that crossroad right now where it's like, should I get a new BRZ?
Right.
Or I could spend the same money and get a decent S2000.
Yeah.
And honestly, if I didn't have an S2000 already, I wouldn't buy one now.
I mean, the prices are insane now. I mean, you've got, what, 78K miles on yours?
Yeah.
This is an 06. I mean, if you were to post this thing right now, I would expect you would get no less than 30K for it. I mean, that's just how crazy the market is now.
If the time is right and somebody has the cash, maybe.
Right.
This whole hype of S2000 or new BRZ, oh, I'd go new BRZ.
Would you?
Yeah, I would. For the money and having a new car. And the other thing is, I would be able to use a new BRZ and not worry about not being able to replace it if something happens.
That's very true.
So,
the BRZ is a car that I literally do not worry about. Like, I park it wherever I want.
Yeah.
I'm not, like, super paranoid about the paint getting chipped up at track days. Like, to me, that car is a tool. It's not an investment. You know, it's a depreciating asset, but I can use it as hard as I want. Yeah, I love the BRZ, but again, the reason I'm doing this video is because in stock form, it has a few pretty significant shortcomings in terms of the handling, the understeer. Gotta love that VTEC. It handles the bumps really well. You know, it's not on the level of JRZ or Olin's TTX or like even a KW Club Sport, but you're paying so much less.
So much less. I was very much balancing price and performance.
For sure. I would say nowadays around $1,800 to $2,000.
Yeah.
That's like your overall entry point into a suspension that feels better than stock.
There's never any point to changing a part and making the car feel worse.
Yeah,
and that's exactly what the...
Anytime you spend less than around like $1,500, like you're almost guaranteed to make your car feel worse.
Yeah. And early on, I didn't know that, because I looked at like the Bilsteins for 900. And yeah, you gotta put just a little bit.
Yeah, you gotta put a little bit of investment into it.
How's the turn-in on the BRZ? Because I always took pride, like the turn-in on the S2000.
The turn-in of the BRZ is good until you just go that little bit, like 2 miles an hour too fast entering a corner, and now it just defaults to terminal understeer.
Yeah.
Whereas this car, you can make like little adjustments. Even if it starts to understeer, you can make little adjustments and you can get it back. At
the very worst, you can try stabbing on the gas, and that rear will.
That too.
I mean, take care of you.
You can sometimes do that in the BRZ too, but only if you're running like a pretty crappy tire. Well, thank you, Julius, for giving me a spin on your AP2 S2000.
Outstanding drive.
Again, I'll never turn down an offer to drive an S2000.
Yeah, man.
But now the question is, will the modified BRZ stack up? Let's find out. And just like that, we're now in Sego's 22 BRZ, and you've done a lot of stuff to this car lately.
Yep, I'm trying to sub 2 at Buttonwillow.
You mean at Thunderhill West?
Yeah, Thunderhill West sub 2.
The main thing is the coilovers, but you've also done a couple little bolt-ons here and there, so just like talk me through it real quick.
I found a header for really cheap, and I saw a YouTube video on the second gen where they just bolted on a Tomei equal length header and made maybe 10 horsepower from 4,000 RPM.
Right where you want it,
Yeah, so there is more of a torque dip between 3 and 4. But that doesn't really matter on the track, so I figured $200, what's the harm?
Yeah, exactly. The main thing you did though was the suspension, and that's why we're here today, is to test the suspension.
Yeah, so I got some Shaftworks suspension, and my friend Tony recommended these, and whenever he tunes stuff, it's really good.
Yeah.
So it came with Perrin front sway bar as like a set, so it's like the coilovers on the front sway bar. And I'm running, now I can actually have a lot of camber. So I'm running like 3.5 degrees front camber.
Crap.
Came with the camber plates.
Okay.
And also like the top strut hole is slotted, so then
you just push
you can push it in more.
What about the rear?
I have adjustable arms, but it's like 2.5, so it's nothing crazy.
Okay.
I don't think there's any understeer with this car right now. It's pretty crazy.
And we're also on a better tire now, the Champiro SX2 RS.
The RS, not the non-RS.
Yeah, not the crappy ones that I have.
There's not much info on these yet since they just came out, but so far it's pretty grippy for the price.
Nice.
They're like $600 shipped.
Yeah, that is cheap.
For an
245s, right?
245 square, 18 by, I have an 18 by 8.5 wheel.
Okay.
And I didn't have to cut the fender or anything. It just fits without rubbing. And I also unplugged the sound box, but now I kind of miss it. So there's a dip and then the power kicks on.
I don't even hear the engine.
I know, it's so quiet.
Whoa, the turn-in's so much sharper.
It's
what the
so
hell?
good.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely stiff.
But it's not, it's manageable.
It's manageable. Woo! That rear is real stiff.
Yeah, the tires are cold.
Yeah, the tires are cold. They feel cold. Dude, the rear, I don't know if I could daily this.
On the freeway and stuff, it's fine.
Okay. The damping is good, yeah.
Yeah, the damping is like good.
There's no bounce. It's just, yeah, it's quite
It's
quite
not
firm.
bouncy, it's just firm. You know? Yeah, this is definitely more of like a track coilover.
Are these spring rates 6K, 9K? Is that just the standard that Shaftworks will do for you if you get it for a BRZ?
That's what he recommends if you want to track it, I think.
But he can do other rates too, right?
Yeah, I'm sure he can valve it differently and give you different spring rates if you ask.
Okay.
But this is like the Tony spec.
The Tony spec. Basically the oversteer spec. I'm glad that I'm getting to drive your car now. Yeah. If I were to sell the coilovers that I still haven't put on my car, like buy a different set and go for Shaftworks, I don't think I could deal with this, honestly. I'm sure on track it's going to be great, but you know, because I drive my car as a daily and I care about compliance so much, even a square-ish spring rate might be a little closer to what I want, or maybe like a 6K and then like a 7K in the rear or something.
Yeah, if the rear was a tiny bit softer, it would be more dailyable. Probably.
Yeah, exactly. The front feels really good though.
Yeah, the front is a 6 with the sway bar.
Yeah, I would plug your sound thing back in.
Yeah,
like I barely hear the engine now.
Yeah, I know, it's too quiet.
And it's not that the fake sound pipe through the speaker sounds good. It doesn't, but at least you can hear it so you know what the engine's doing.
Yeah.
Oh, that was a crunchy shift.
I'm gonna change my transmission fluid later.
Yeah, I probably should do that. Yeah, this rear, very, very firm.
And the turn-in is so crisp.
Yeah, the turn-in is very crisp. It's the tire and the damper and the sway bar. They're all working together.
Like you could get throttle oversteer so easy.
Yeah, I'm sure. Oh, yeah. Oh.
That bump upsets all my cars.
That's true. Yeah, but I think the moral of the story kind of is that if you want suspension that's really good on track, you're going to give up a little bit of daily drivability. There's just like no way around it. I've never felt a set of suspension, even JRZs, to where I was like, this feels fine on the road. I'm like on a bumpy road like this, and it's also track focused.
I don't know if that exists. Maybe
I don't think it
paid
exists.
like $20,000.
Yeah, I'd love to try like some Penske's or something someday and see how those feel. But for $1,800, you're getting some pretty damn good suspension.
Yeah.
Shaftworks will actually custom valve each set of dampers that they sell and actually provide you with a dyno chart.
Yep.
I don't know any other company that does that.
I think Fortunato also gives you a dyno chart.
And you were saying that the way that they're tuned, and you get this as sort of like evidence in the dyno chart, is that each click out of 32 clicks, that actually makes a noticeable difference.
Yeah, so he uploaded some videos showing like the adjustment range and like every 4 clicks, like how it affects the damping. And it's like very even between those 4 clicks.
Yeah, that's cool.
He showed that, like, I don't know, I'll just throw out like some name brand coilover.
Like Olin's.
Yeah, like below 12 clicks, it didn't really do any change.
Only in the middle range.
Yeah, so anything above 12 clicks, it made a noticeable difference.
Okay. The rear makes it a little harder for me to attack corners in this thing. Compared to the S2000, it's a 12K rear in the S2000, but in terms of like relative spring rates, this feels like way more than a 12K on an S2K.
Yeah, definitely. This feels like closer to my 14K S2000 rear rate.
It kind of reminds me of 16K.
Yeah. On certain bigger bumps, it can't. Maybe it's like shock travel. I don't know.
Yeah, it almost feels like shock travel.
Yeah,
like it feels like it's hitting the bump stops.
Yeah,
but the front end of this car is holy shit. Like, it's a night and day difference from stock.
Turns in.
Yeah, like now it feels like dare I say, like comparable to like a square S2000, like a square setup S2000 on similar tires.
Yeah.
Maybe at the track it'll be a little different because again it's a McPherson strut front and you're not going to get that dynamic camber change, but I don't know. Out here it's pretty sharp.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if there's something I can do to, besides spring rate, like something, maybe the dampers were valved differently or whatever, if the rear would settle down a bit.
Oh yeah. Well, it's easy to play around with since these are one-way adjustable.
Yeah.
You just play with the clicks, right?
This road is very bumpy.
Yeah, it's bumpy and it's pretty high speed compared to other roads that I film on.
Yeah.
So you feel some of those big motions in the shock. Oh, so engine-wise, straight line performance is at least like a solid notch above an AP2 S2000.
Right.
I felt more scared driving this car, not just because the suspension's stiff, but the power. I mean, you saw I got like a big old boatload of oversteer in like one of the first corners.
Yeah, the mid-range torque.
Yeah, the mid-range torque is on a totally different level.
Dynoed with the header, like that video I saw, he was like 180 wheel torque at like
180 wheel torque
at like 4,000.
Yeah, so it's a solid, at least I would say it feels like at least 10 to 15 wheel horsepower more at the top end, but the mid-range is like probably like 30-40 foot-pounds more at least.
Because the S2000, mine banks at like 160-ish wheel torque.
Oh, that's actually a lot.
And but that's like my full bolt-on tune. This is just a header.
Yeah. Now this engine, I'm really impressed with the overall like torque curve of the engine. I just wish it made a better sound.
Oh yeah, this is what it sounds like without a sound box.
Yeah. So for those of you guys wondering why I haven't unplugged mine, like this is pretty much the reason why. Like you just don't hear much inside anymore.
I think I'm gonna plug it back in.
Yeah, like with a helmet on the racetrack in my car with no sound mods whatsoever, I can tell the speakers piping that sound in, that's the only way I can hear what the engine's doing. Yeah. Okay, so that was just a little comparison between similarly modded S2000 AP2 and the new 22 BRZ. If I had to compare these two specific examples, the S2000 to me is still easier to drive hard because of the suspension, and also because on this road, the lack of torque just makes it a little bit less dangerous feeling. This car feels snappier now because of the coilovers and all that mid-range torque. I think on a smooth track, you'll find out on Monday, but I think this will be pretty damn fast. Like faster probably than a non-aero square setup S2000 with like similar tires. Yeah.
It'll be comparable for sure.
Yeah. I didn't feel any hint of understeer, driving at 7/10 on this road. So I think that bodes well
we had a pretty damn big slide.
That was a pretty damn big slide, yeah. The tires were cold. I should not have pushed that hard that early. All right, but let me know what you guys think about modified BRZ versus S2000. If you've driven both if you've had experience with Feal's coilovers or Shaftworks. I know Shaftworks seems like a fairly new suspension company as far as I know.
The owner, he's been around and he's been tuning shocks, but I think the company itself is, I just heard about it.
Yeah. Let me know what you guys think. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.